Hong Kong action legend John Woo once tried to make a film based on Nintendo's classic Metroid franchise. Here's the story. John Woo transformed the Hong Kong film industry in the 80s with graceful and gloriously over-the-top action movies like The Killer and Hard Boiled. In the 90s, he relocated to Hollywood, where films like Hard Target and Face Off introduced his visceral, elaborately choreographed style to further waves of acolytes and imitators. As video games grew more sophisticated, Woo's influence on this form became apparent as well. By the early 2000s, when his Hollywood career started taking a bit of a downswing, the director spent a brief and sadly unsuccessful period focusing on video game-related projects. Around 2003, Woo co-founded Tiger Hill Entertainment and began developing a slew of game and movie crossovers. Among them was a collaboration with John Carpenter called Psychopath, a sequel to Hard Boiled titled Stranglehold, and a live-action adaptation of Nintendo's Metroid games. Woo licensed the screen rights to Metroid in 2004. The series was enjoying a major comeback following the releases of Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion in 2002, and Nintendo was apparently supportive, initially at least, of Woo's plan to adapt the games. The film went into development, and writer David Greenwalt, known for his work on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, was brought in to help draft a screenplay. Very quickly, though, the team started running into problems. Nintendo was highly protective of the property, allegedly because they were still smarting from the failure of the Super Mario Bros. Movie in 1993, and they issued a long list of restrictions dictating how the film could interpret their universe. Woo's adaptation also planned to spend a great deal of time exploring the origin story of protagonist Samus Aran. Nintendo had not yet established much of the character's background, which meant most of her actual characterization would have to be invented by the movie. The company was said to be very uncomfortable with this idea. No screenplay or story treatment was ever met with full approval. The film spent 3 years idling in development before Woo finally allowed his licensing rights to expire in 2007. By then, he'd already sharply scaled back his game development plans. Nearly a dozen planned titles were cancelled, including Carpenter's Psychopath, and only Stranglehold survived to see a release. Woo basically abandoned his video game efforts shortly afterward, and returned to China to make his filmmaking comeback with the 2-part historical epic Red Cliff. Check out my series on George Romero's Resident Evil movie for a look at another abandoned video game adaptation.